As we wrap up the year, I want to give you 3 presentation lessons I learned the hard way. Would have saved me years of stress and helped me present my work with far more clarity and confidence. And I'll share the stories too, as long as you promise not to think less of me after. And no, these aren't fluffy holiday reflections. These are practical, career-defining lessons that can change the way you communicate your research immediately. I've spent years helping researchers, PhDs, and postdocs become clearer, calmer speakers. And these lessons come directly from my mistakes I made finishing my PhD and starting my academic career. So in the spirit of the holidays, think of this as a small present. 3 lessons I wish someone had handed me when I needed them most. Let's begin. First lesson is about intellectual humility, and it's the one that would have changed my PhD experience the most. During my dissertation defense, I made a mistake I see researchers make constantly, confusing humility with uncertainty and confidence with arrogance. Here's the truth. You should be confident about what you know, humble about everything else. Trouble is, anxiety flips that around. It makes you downplay the parts of your research where you're solid and over-explain or over-defend the parts that are still evolving, where there's still uncertainty. And that's when talks start spiraling. You lose clarity, you lose pacing, and you lose your audience. True humility isn't shrinking yourself. It's being clear about where your knowledge is strong, your methods, your reasoning, your results. Being open and natural about the uncertainty that surrounds other pieces of your research. When you hold both at the same time, you present with authority and humility. Your audience trusts you far more. Here's the story I promised. It's a bit ugly. When I was defending my PhD, an examiner asked me a methodology question I didn't know, but I made the mistake of answering with confidence I didn't have. Uh-oh. Luckily, I looked at my supervisor, not smiling in his usual way, and I stopped. I looked at the examiner and I said, I don't know the answer to that. I think it sounds interesting. I'd like an opportunity to learn more about it and then have a follow-up conversation with you. And with that simple statement, I earned my PhD. The lesson's simple. Be confident about what you know. Have humility about everything else. The balance makes you clearer, calmer, far more credible. Your expertise becomes visible, and your humility becomes a tangible marker that you understand the limits of both your research and your own thinking. Second lesson I learned is that presenting's a skill, not a gene. The day I let go of the idea that speakers are born rather than trained, my entire relationship with presenting changed. When you think it's a personality trait, every talk becomes a test of who you are. When you treat it as a skill, every talk becomes a chance to get better. Here's the next ugly story, and it's worse than the last one. When I finished teaching my first graduate class, a student said on the anonymous course reviews, Andrew Churchill should never be allowed to teach at McGill again. And they were right, sort of. You see, that version of Andrew shouldn't have been allowed to, and he actually wasn't. The head of the department pulled me aside and said, listen, leading a classroom, presenting day after day after day, it's a learned skill. People aren't born with it. Your job is now to get better. I'm going to assign you the same course again next semester, and you come back and you show me you improved. And so I did. I improved for 3 straight years, and then I was recognized with McGill's Outstanding Teacher Award, nominated by students. That was 10 years ago, and I'm still working at getting better. So remember, you're not born knowing how to present. Nobody is. Once you treat presenting as a learnable cognitive skill, structure, pacing, clarity, explanation, your growth will happen too. The third lesson comes from another ugly moment. First presentation course I taught a couple years later after the last one. The last class, people were getting ready to present. I sat in the back of the room ready to video, confident what was about to happen. It was a bit of a disaster. Everything was off. Gestures came from a lesson instead of the speaker. Voices that sounded forced instead of natural. And the reason was I taught the course the wrong way. I had started performance best practices and then worked on content, but that never works. You see, performance best practices are only best practices if they emerge from content and from the speaker. When you're first learning to present, it's all about content. Delivery, voice, gestures, movement, presence can only emerge naturally if the content underneath is solid. Fake it till you make it doesn't work in presentations, not when the fake it part is trying to layer body language and performance techniques on top of content that isn't clear. That's when everything feels forced. Your voice shakes, your gestures feel unnatural, your confidence collapses. Effective presenting is an exercise in authenticity, not performance. And authenticity is only possible when the content is structured, simple, deeply understood. Nail your content first, because only when your ideas are clear and your structure is strong does delivery become natural. Stops being a performance, starts being an expression of what you understand deeply. So as we end the year, those are 3 gifts from my failures I hope you carry into the next one. Confidence in what you know, humility about what you don't. The belief that presenting is a skill you absolutely can learn, and the understanding that great delivery only emerges from clear content. Hold on to these, and every talk you give next year will feel clearer, calmer, and more in control. Hopefully me sharing these low points doesn't lower your feelings about me. Assuming not, give this video a like, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do that too. Next year, I have a new present for you, as I'll be launching a course specifically for PhDs and postdocs at a price point you can afford, with the mindset shifts and training you need to become the best speaker people don't yet know. Hope to see you again soon.